First contact in the cold. The methane seas of Titan IX churned beneath the research station, their dark waves reflecting the light of 3 moons. Dr. Sarah Chen watched the temperature gauge on her suit drop another 10 degrees, hitting -197 degrees Celsius. The mining facility's quantum core had failed spectacularly, leaving her stranded on the observation deck with no power and no backup systems. Status report, Human Chen, came the worried voice of Station Director Valrix through her emergency communicator. The Proximan's multi-tone voice carried notes of what Sarah had learned to recognize as extreme distress. Your suit power must be critically low by now. Sarah checked her wrist display and chuckled. About 20 minutes left. But don't worry, I've got this figured out. Figured out. Valrix's translator barely managed to convey his incredulity. The temperature in your section has dropped below the survival threshold for every known sentient species. Even with a powered suit, you should be showing signs of systemic failure. Sarah began removing her power pack, much to the alien director's horror. Look, Valrix, I need you to trust me. Humans are built differently. We evolved on a world where temperatures could swing from 50 above to 40 below in a single day. Our bodies are walking chemical reactors. But the readings, they're impossible. You're generating heat without power. That's what humans do, Sarah said, now working on her suit seals. We're endothermic. And right now, I need to redistribute my remaining power to get that quantum core back online. The observation deck's emergency lights cast everything in a pale blue glow as Sarah exposed her base layer, a simple thermal suit designed for deep space work. The cold hit her immediately, but decades of experience in extreme environments had taught her to embrace it rather than fight it. I am reading your vital signs, Valrix said, his voice rising to frequencies that made Sarah's calm crackle. Your core temperature, it's maintaining despite the environment. How are you not crystallizing? Sarah moved through the darkness toward the maintenance shaft, her boots crunching on frost-covered metal. Humans have this thing called brown fat, specialized tissue that burns energy to produce heat. Plus, we're really good at vasoconstriction. Blood flow management, you know. She could almost picture Valrix's sensor clusters spinning in confusion. The Proximans, like most spacefaring races, had evolved in carefully controlled environments. The idea of a species that could actively regulate its own temperature was foreign to them. The maintenance shaft was a nightmare of frozen cables and iced-over panels. Sarah's fingers, protected only by thin thermal gloves, moved with practiced precision as she began rerouting power from her suit into the core's emergency systems. Director, she said, her breath visible in the frigid air, I need you to understand something about humans. We're not just surviving here. This is what we're made for. Our ancestors survived ice ages with nothing but animal furs and fire. The quantum core hummed weakly as she fed it power. In the background, she could hear the alien crew discussing her actions in their native language, their tones a mixture of disbelief and amazement. There's a saying back on Earth, Sarah continued, watching as her work slowly brought the core's containment field back online. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger. Humans don't just endure extreme conditions, we adapt to them, learn from them, use them to our advantage. The following hours became a dance of precision and endurance. Sarah moved between critical systems, sacrificing her suit's power piece by piece to maintain the station's vital functions. All the while, her alien colleagues watched in stunned silence as their instruments recorded what should have been impossible, a human functioning in conditions that would kill most species in minutes. When the backup systems finally came online, Sarah was sitting cross-legged beside the quantum core, covered in frost, but very much alive. The station's heat began to return, melting the ice that had formed on every surface. I have contacted the Galactic Science Council, Valrix announced as emergency teams finally reached Sarah's position. They wish to study how you survived. No one has ever seen anything like this. Sarah stood, brushing ice crystals from her thermal suit. Tell them they're welcome to study human adaptability all they want. But first, I could really use a hot coffee. You wouldn't believe how much energy brown fat burns. The medical team, prepared for a frozen corpse, instead found themselves facing a smiling human who politely declined their thermal restoration chamber. As they escorted her to the medical bay, Sarah could hear Valrix already composing his report to the council. Amendment to Species Classification File. Humans, he dictated. Previous environmental limitations require significant revision. Note: traditional survival metrics may not apply. Recommend immediate review of all human physiological data. Sarah smiled. She knew this was just the beginning. Once the council learned about humans who ran ultramarathons in Death Valley or swam in Arctic waters, they'd have to rewrite their entire definition of what was possible. As the station returned to normal operations, the alien crew found themselves looking at their human colleague with new eyes. They had just witnessed something that would change their understanding of life itself, a creature that didn't just survive the impossible, but thrived in it. And Sarah Chen, sipping her restored coffee, was already thinking about what other impossible things humans might show their alien friends in the days to come. The challenge. News of Sarah Chen's survival spread through the galactic scientific community like a quantum cascade. 2 weeks after the Titan IX incident, she found herself standing before the Galactic Science Council's Emergency Response Committee, surrounded by representatives from 17 spacefaring species. High Commissioner Tixtal, a towering Arcturian whose crystalline form sparkled under the chamber's lights, led the questioning. Dr. Chen, we have reviewed the data from Titan IX. Our analysts suggest the recordings must be flawed. The recordings are accurate, Sarah replied, fighting the urge to smile at the subtle harmonic disturbance in the translator's output, the alien equivalent of sputtering in disbelief. Impossible, declared Representative Kavorn of the Cephalid Confederation, their tentacles writhing in agitation. No biological entity can maintain homeostasis in such conditions without extensive technological assistance. Before Sarah could respond, emergency alerts flashed across the chamber's holographic displays. Director Valrix's familiar multi-tone voice filled the room. Council, we have a critical situation at the Helios Deep Space Research Station. Their containment systems are failing. The chamber erupted in concerned murmurs. The Helios station was positioned within the corona of a blue giant star, conducting vital research on stellar physics. Its loss would set galactic science back decades. The automated systems, Tixtal demanded. Compromised by a cosmic ray surge, Valrix responded. The manual override requires physical activation, but the access corridor. He paused, his tone shifting to one of defeat. Currently registers at 126 degrees Celsius with toxic gas saturation. Sarah stepped forward. That's about 260 Fahrenheit. Hot, but not impossible. The chamber fell silent. Kavorn's tentacles went rigid. Human Chen, perhaps your thermal tolerance has affected your reasoning. That temperature would denature proteins in most species. Most species, yes, Sarah agreed. But humans have some tricks up our sleeves. We can handle short exposures to extreme heat through evolutionary adaptations. Our sweat glands, for instance. This is not a time for xenobiology lessons, Tixtal interrupted. The station will be lost in 40 minutes without intervention. Sarah pulled up the station schematics on her datapad. The access corridor is 30 meters long. I can make that run. Humans have survived higher temperatures for short periods. There's even a human tradition called sauna bathing where you propose to physically enter the corridor. Valrix's voice carried both horror and hope. Even with our most advanced protective gear, the atmospheric composition would. I won't need advanced gear, Sarah said. Just a basic heat suit and an oxygen supply. Our bodies are remarkably good at thermal regulation. We evolved chasing prey under the hot African sun until they collapsed from heat exhaustion. It's called persistence hunting. The council members exchanged glances, their various appendages and sensory organs conveying a mixture of doubt and fascination. There is a reason, Sarah continued that humans were classified as Deathworlders when we joined the Galactic community. Our planet tried to kill us in countless ways, and instead of hiding or engineering our environment to be perfectly safe, we adapted. We got stronger. Dextel's crystalline form vibrated in what Sarah had learned was their version of a resigned sigh. The Council cannot officially sanction such a risk. Then don't sanction it. Just give me access to a transport. Consider it a human accepting personal responsibility for their own safety decisions. Another concept we're quite fond of. 20 minutes later, Sarah stood in the Helios station's preparation chamber, wearing a basic heat suit that the alien engineers had insisted on modifying with every cooling system they could attach. She had quietly disabled most of them, knowing they would only add bulk and slow her down. The corridor atmosphere is primarily carbon dioxide, with trace amounts of sulfur compounds. The station's AI reported. Temperature now at 128 degrees Celsius and rising. Sarah checked her oxygen supply and heat-resistant datapad. Remind me to tell you about firefighters when this is done, she told the watching council members through her comlink. Humans who run into burning buildings as their actual job. She could practically feel their collective disbelief through the video feed. The access door slid open, revealing a corridor filled with shimmering air and the dull red glow of overloaded systems. Sarah took a deep breath of cool oxygen and began to run. The heat hit her like a physical wall, but her body responded as millions of years of evolution had trained it to. Sweat glands activated instantly, creating a cooling envelope around her body. Her heart rate increased efficiently, distributing blood to where it was needed most. Core temperature rising, but within acceptable parameters, she reported between measured breaths. Though I might need to skip my morning workout tomorrow. The council watched in stunned silence as their instruments tracked her progress. Not just surviving, but maintaining a steady pace through conditions they had deemed unsurvivable. When Sarah reached the override controls, her suit was smoking slightly, and she'd lost nearly 2 liters of water through sweat. But her hands were steadied as she input the emergency codes. Containment systems restored, the AI announced. Station integrity preserved. Sarah sat down heavily beside the control panel, gulping water from her supply pack. So, she said, knowing her casual tone would drive the xenobiologists mad about those flawed recordings from Titan IX. The silence from the council feed was broken only by what sounded suspiciously like Valrix trying not to laugh. Perhaps, Hisixel finally said, their crystalline form shimmering with new frequencies. The Emergency Response Committee should consider adding a human division, specifically for situations outside normal environmental parameters. Sarah wiped sweat from her forehead. Good idea. But first, anyone want to hear about human deep-sea divers? You wouldn't believe what pressure our bodies can handle. In the council chamber, 17 species began to realize that their understanding of biological limits might need serious revision. Breaking physics. The Galactic Science Academy's main amphitheater hadn't been this crowded in decades. Xenobiologists, environmental specialists, and adaptation theorists from across known space packed the chamber. On the central platform, Sarah Chen stood beside a holoprojection of human anatomical systems, facing an audience that included some of the most brilliant minds in the galaxy. The key to understanding human resilience, Sarah explained, pointing to the circulatory system display, isn't in any single adaptation, but in the combination of multiple systems working together. Professor Kavorn, who had become one of her strongest supporters after the Helios incident, raised a tentacle. But the energy requirements alone should make such adaptations impossible. Our models suggest. Your models, Sarah interrupted gently, are based on optimized biological systems. Humans aren't optimized. We're over-engineered. Evolution threw everything at us. And we kept it all. The holoprojection shifted to show human skin structure. Take our temperature regulation. We have sweat glands, vasodilation, vasoconstriction, brown fat, shivering mechanisms, and behavioral adaptations. Any one of these would be energetically expensive, but together they give us unprecedented environmental flexibility. A Meridian scientist, their bioluminescent patches pulsing with excitement, spoke up. This explains the incident at Research Station Gamma 12 last week, when the human maintenance worker entered the cryogenic storage facility without a thermal suit. Sarah finished. Exactly. Humans can generate up to 100 watts of heat through shivering alone. We're walking fusion reactors. The amphitheater's displays filled with data from various human survival incidents. The Titan IX event, the Helios Station rescue, each defying conventional biological limitations. High Commissioner Strolls' crystalline form resonated with what Sarah had learned was their version of academic excitement. But surely there are limits. The Council has records of human settlements in environments ranging from 50 degrees Celsius to -40. Those are comfortable limits, Sarah corrected. Our extreme survival range is much wider. There are humans who climb mountains where the air is too thin for most species to survive. Others who dive hundreds of meters on a single breath of air. We call them free divers. The audience erupted in overlapping questions, their universal translators creating a cacophony of scientific curiosity. Sarah held up her hand for silence. I know it seems impossible, but humans evolved as persistence predators on a death world. We can maintain homeostasis in conditions that would kill most species because we had to. Our planet tried to kill us with heat, cold, pressure, radiation, and each time we adapted. She pulled up new data on the display. This is why standard safety protocols don't work for humans. We're not just surviving extreme conditions, we're built for them. Our bodies expect environmental stress and actually perform better under it. A cephalid researcher waved their sensory appendages in confusion. Better. That contradicts every principle of biological efficiency. Exactly, Sarah smiled. Humans aren't efficient. We're redundant. We have backup systems for our backup systems. Our bodies can switch energy sources, repair damage while continuing to function, and adapt to chronic stressors in ways your models say are impossible. The holoprojection showed footage from Earth, ultramarathon runners in Death Valley, ice swimmers in the Arctic, high-altitude mountaineers without oxygen support. But the most important thing to understand about humans, Sarah continued, is that we're not content with our natural adaptations. We study them, understand them, and then push them further. Every time you tell us something's impossible, we take it as a challenge. Director Volrix, watching from the front row, made a sound that his translator rendered as a chuckle. Like when we told you the Helios corridor was unsurvivable. Exactly, Sarah agreed. Humans have this saying, hold my beer. It means, well, it means we're about to prove you wrong. The xenobiologists in the audience frantically took notes as Sarah continued to explain human adaptations. The way human muscles could generate heat through microscopic inefficiencies. How human skin could become more resistant to temperature extremes through exposure. The incredible plasticity of human cardiovascular systems. We're not super beings, she concluded. We're just incredibly stubborn generalists who never learned when to quit. Our secret isn't having the best adaptation for any situation. It's having a workable adaptation for every situation. As the presentation concluded, High Commissioner Strolls approached the platform. Dr. Chen, the Council has been discussing the formation of a new research division. One focused on exploring environments previously deemed too hostile for biological entities. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Let me guess, you need human volunteers. We need human expertise, Strolls corrected. Your species has already solved problems we thought unsolvable. Perhaps it's time we learn to see the galaxy through your eyes. The amphitheater hummed with agreement. Sarah looked out at the assembled scientists, seeing not just academic interest but genuine wonder. They were beginning to understand what humanity had known all along, that the impossible was just another problem waiting to be solved. Well, she said, pulling up a new set of environmental data on the display, who wants to hear about how humans used to hunt prey by literally chasing them until they collapsed from exhaustion? Trust me, it explains a lot about our species. The audience leaned forward, ready to learn more about the Deathworlders who treated environmental extremes as mere inconveniences. And somewhere in the back of the room, a junior researcher was already plotting how to include humans in their next impossible expedition. Cultural exchange. The Galactic Archive's main viewing chamber had been converted into what Sarah Chen called a show-and-tell session. Holographic displays showed scenes from Earth's most extreme environments, while alien scientists watched with a mixture of horror and fascination. This, Sarah explained, gesturing to footage of a human settlement in Siberia, is considered a perfectly reasonable place to live by many humans. The temperature regularly drops to minus 60 degrees Celsius. Professor Kevorn's tentacles curled in distress. And these humans choose to live there. Not out of necessity. They've lived there for generations, Sarah confirmed. They built a culture around surviving the cold. Like many human adaptations, it's not just physical, it's cultural. The next display showed deep-sea welders working at crushing depths. High Commissioner Strolls' crystalline form vibrated with disbelief. Your species voluntarily descends into high-pressure environments to perform maintenance. Someone has to fix the underwater cables, Sarah shrugged. Humans have been diving in one form or another for thousands of years. We started doing it to gather food, then pearls, and now we do it to maintain infrastructure. Director Valrix, who had become something of an expert on human capabilities, added, their adaptation to pressure changes is remarkable. They can move between depth zones that would cause instant cellular collapse in most species. It's not just that we can survive these conditions, Sarah emphasized, switching to footage of firefighters entering a burning building. We built entire professions around facing them. These humans run into burning structures when everyone else is running out. The alien audience watched in stunned silence as the firefighters navigated through smoke and flames, carrying out survivors. Your species intentionally enters combustion zones to save others. A Meridian researcher's bioluminescence flickered with emotion, without certainty of their own survival. It's what humans do, Sarah said simply. We see someone in danger, we help. The risk to ourselves is secondary. The displays shifted again, showing mountain climbers ascending Earth's highest peaks. These humans climb into zones where oxygen levels can't support conscious thought, using nothing but their training and determination. But why? Kevorn asked, genuinely puzzled. What resources are they gathering? Sarah smiled. None. They do it because the mountains are there. Because humans look at something impossible and say, I wonder if I could do that. The chamber filled with murmurs as the aliens tried to process this concept. Valrix's translator struggled to convey their mix of amazement and confusion. You mean to say, Dextel clarified, that humans deliberately seek out hostile conditions for recreation? Exactly, Sarah confirmed. We call it extreme sports. Surfing giant waves, jumping from high places, running ultra-marathons through deserts. The more impossible something seems, the more certain you can be that some human has tried it. She pulled up new footage, cave divers squeezing through underwater tunnels, base jumpers leaping from cliffs, athletes running 100-mile races through Death Valley. But the most important thing to understand, Sarah continued, is that these aren't superhuman feats. They're just examples of ordinary humans pushing the boundaries of what's possible. A junior researcher raised their appendage. Is this why human safety protocols are so flexible? Sarah laughed. Yes, we understand the need for safety measures, but we also understand that progress often requires calculated risks. Every human achievement, from climbing Mount Everest to walking on our moon, began with someone doing something that everyone else thought was impossible. The displays now showed historical footage, the first moon landing, deep-sea exploration vessels, Antarctic research stations. Your species, Valrix observed, seems to have an unusual relationship with the concept of impossible. We see it as a challenge, Sarah explained. When you tell a human something's impossible, we don't accept it. We start figuring out how to prove you wrong. She paused, looking at the assembled scientists. "That's why I think our species can learn so much from each other. You have incredible technology and knowledge. We have experience in pushing beyond perceived limits. Together, imagine what we could achieve." Extel's crystalline form resonated with decision. "The Council has approved the formation of the first Joint Extreme Environment Research Team. We would be honored if you would lead it, Dr. Chen." Sarah's eyes lit up. A team of humans and aliens exploring the most hostile environments in the galaxy, testing the limits of both biology and technology. She grinned. "When do we start?" "There is one condition," Valrix added. "You must promise to warn us before any humans decide to." What was the phrase? "Hold your beer." The chamber filled with laughter, some from translators, some from species capable of recognizing human humor. As the session concluded, Sarah could see the change in how these alien scientists viewed humanity. No longer were we just Deathworlders who survived against odds. We were partners who could help them reach beyond their own limitations. "So," she asked, pulling up a star chart, "who wants to help me plan an expedition to that impossible methane storm on Titan 12? I have some ideas about how we could study it up close." The aliens gathered around, ready to learn how humans turn the impossible into the achievable. And somewhere in the galaxy, another impossible barrier waited to be broken by human determination and alien ingenuity working together. New horizons. The methane storms of Titan 12 raged around the research vessel, their swirling purple-black clouds illuminated by constant lightning. Inside the ship's observation dome, Sarah Chen stood alongside her alien colleagues, watching as their instruments recorded unprecedented data about one of the galaxy's most hostile environments. "Primary shield holding at 82%, reported Kvorn, their tentacles dancing across the holographic controls. "Temperature outside the hull is -179°C, and the atmospheric pressure would crush most spacecraft." Sarah nodded, making adjustments to their trajectory. "Perfect conditions for what we're about to try." Director Valrix's multi-tone voice carried a note of what had become fond exasperation. "You're going to say something terrifying, aren't you?" "We need samples from inside the storm core," Sarah said, pulling up the schematics for their newest piece of equipment. "And I've designed something that combines human adaptability with your environmental containment technology." The device on the display looked deceptively simple, a hybrid suit that married human thermal regulation systems with alien pressure technology. The aliens had called it impossible. Sarah called it Tuesday. "You can't be serious." Extel's crystalline form flickered with concern. "Even with the hybrid suit, the conditions out there are beyond any survival parameters we've established." "Beyond established parameters, yes," Sarah agreed, already heading for the preparation chamber. "But that's why we're here, isn't we? To establish new parameters." The Joint Extreme Environment Research Team, GEE, or as the humans called it, had spent the past 6 months pushing the boundaries of what was possible. They'd explored the carbon dioxide glaciers of Nova 6, dived into the metallic hydrogen oceans of Kepler 847 bits, and studied life forms in environments that defied conventional physics. "The suit's neural interface is online," reported Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the team's human biotechnology specialist. "The pressure compensation systems are integrated with Sarah's natural thermal regulation. In theory, it should work." "In theory," Kvorn muttered, but their tentacles moved with practiced efficiency to help Sarah into the suit. The alien scientist had learned to trust human instincts, even when they seemed to defy logic. "Remember when you thought humans surviving in -197 degrees was impossible?" Sarah asked, checking her suit seals. "Or running through that superheated corridor? This is just another impossible thing we're about to make possible." The team had changed over the months. The aliens had learned to see human recklessness as calculated risk-taking, while the humans had learned to appreciate alien caution and precision. Together, they'd achieved things neither species could have done alone. "Launch chamber prepared," Valrix announced. Though I feel compelled to note that this is the most dangerous environment any biological entity has ever voluntarily entered. Sarah stepped into the launch chamber, the hybrid suit humming with combined human and alien technology. That's what makes it exciting. Besides, the storm's electrical activity should give us readings about the formation of complex organic molecules that could revolutionize our understanding of life itself. Only a human would call potential molecular dissolution exciting, Kevorn observed, but their tentacles moved in what Sarah had learned was their species' version of a smile. The launch chamber's outer doors opened, and Sarah felt the suit's systems engage. Human biorhythms and alien technology working in perfect harmony. The storm beckoned, its swirling patterns promising new discoveries. Beginning data collection, she reported, stepping out into the maelstrom. The hybrid suit performed perfectly, her body's natural adaptations enhanced by alien engineering. You're getting this. The molecular density in here is incredible. Back in the ship, the alien scientists watched in amazement as their instruments recorded data from within the storm's core. Readings that would have been impossible without the unique combination of human resilience and alien technology. The Council will never believe this, Valric said, monitoring Sarah's vital signs, a biological entity functioning inside a methane storm. They'll believe it, Sarah replied through the comm, her voice steady despite the incredible forces surrounding her. Because we're going to show them something even more impossible next month. More impossible than this. Kevorn's tentacles wrapped around themselves in anticipation. I've been looking at the data from that neutron star's corona, Sarah said casually. I think with some modifications to this suit. The aliens exchanged glances, their various appendages and sensory organs conveying a mixture of horror and excitement. They'd learned that when a human said something like that, incredible discoveries usually followed. As Sarah collected samples from within the storm, she reflected on how far they'd come. Humans had brought their determination and adaptability to the galaxy, while the aliens had contributed their precision and technological mastery. Together, they were rewriting the rules of what was possible. You know, she said, watching complex organic molecules form in the storm around her. Back on Earth, we have this old saying, per aspera ad astra. Your translator isn't converting that, Valric noted. Through hardship to the stars, Sarah translated, reaching out to collect a particularly interesting molecular formation. Though in our case, maybe it should be through the impossible to new discoveries. The storm raged on around her, but inside the hybrid suit, at the intersection of human resilience and alien technology, Sarah Chen smiled. They weren't just exploring the impossible anymore. They were proving that with human determination and alien wisdom combined, nothing was truly impossible after all. Back on the ship, Kevorn was already drafting their report to the Council. Addendum to xenobiology files, they dictated, regarding humans. Previous limitations on possible exploration parameters require complete revision. Note, when a human says, impossible, prepare for imminent discovery. And somewhere in the vast galaxy, another impossible phenomenon waited to be explored by this unique partnership of species who had learned that the only real limit was the one you chose to accept.